The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167. The time has come for CEO Profiles.
My man from Lifted Innovations, Brandon Ward. How are you, pal?
Mr. Shapiro, doing good, buddy. I apologize I wasn't able to pop in the studio today. I hope you can understand.
No, I can't.
Like a madman as usual.
I can't understand.
I have nothing to do.
No, dude, that's like a number one rule in business. You're supposed to give us entrepreneurial advice as we document everything you're doing with Lifted Innovations. Your big tech cannabis play here, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you make a meeting and you don't show up to it. That's the number one rule. Am I not?
Hey,
do I smell?
You know
do I smell?
If you gotta. Hey, you know what? I think you hold because we communicated. That's what it's all about, brother. Right ahead of time, letting everybody know what's up. We're all on the same page. So, I love you though, man. I respect that.
Yeah, I'm insulted. I don't love you anymore. I don't love you. Well, I'm good.
Yeah. You know what? Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
That's it. How dare you? No, okay, we're
We're
back.
done.
We're back. We'll be fine. What I want to ask you, though, and we don't actually talk a lot about this because we talk everything to do with being an entrepreneur and running Lifted Innovations, but what about business etiquette? Are people still showing some business etiquette these days? Has it changed, or is there respect in the workplace?
It can be hit or miss, honestly. And I think for me, it's about, again, we talk about this a lot, kind of philosophical aspects. I think business incorporates that. We're all humans at the end of the day. Everyone kind of has their own styles. I think the old school kind of beat you down, fierce, emotionless. Personally, that's not my style. I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve. I prefer to be transparent, communicate up front, just lay issues out on the table, and let the people you're working with know where you're at, what you're hoping to see happen, and then where you can work in the middle, man. So, communication is key, right? It's not always perfect, but I've found that communicating ahead of time about stuff before you make broad sweeping changes. If you change a date or a meeting time, you give the people a heads up, right? So,
but I mean, how important is being punctual?
Oh, dude, 100%. Like for me, it's about respecting time. And I think as a leader, not only internally, but externally, you show your respect for other people's time based on being punctual. I think sometimes things happen, but I think the right thing to do is give a notice, even if it's 5 minutes ahead of time. Hey, going to be 5 minutes late. That way you're showing respect for the individual's time or groups that you're meeting with, so that if they're waiting, maybe they can answer some emails or do some tasks while they're waiting. I'm not a huge fan of people that show up late or are in meetings together and they're on their phone their whole time, and then they pop up and chime in on whatever they're doing and they're not listening, perhaps. Like, that kind of stuff drives me nuts. If the meeting is not valuable enough for you to set off your phone for 30 minutes, then the meeting shouldn't have even been scheduled. Really, that's my perspective. Sometimes you got to take a check or look to see what's happening and put it back down, but I think it's very important to be respectful of who you're working with and respect their time and show that by giving them your attention fully and kindness.
Yeah, I will say I'm bad with the timing aspect of meetings. We could probably even reach back to a couple meetings we've had in the past. I've probably been late, and I'm not proud of it. But for some reason, I always
communicate though.
What's that? Well, I'll let people know I'm late, but no, I think it's a flaw of mine. And, I use an excuse always because I'm never late for a radio show. So every single day of my life, basically, there is one meeting I have that I'm never late for because the show will go on without me and I have to do it. So, maybe I use that as an excuse too much, but I'm like you, man, when it comes, and I think this is really important for any young entrepreneur who's listening. Dude, if you're in a meeting, or ma'am, if you're in a meeting, make sure you put down your phone. What a lack of respect that is. And I'll take it one step further. If you're doing a radio show interview with me and someone's on their phone, I cut that interview short within a minute. I'm like, so we're doing our show right now, and you don't even have the decency to put your phone down, the audacity to look at something that's more important than the one and only Todd Shapiro? How dare you? And then I kick him out of the studio. I get Bilal to throw in some muscle. But in meetings, it does. It's just, there's something about focus and understanding. And if people have their focus and understanding elsewhere, then what are you getting out of that meeting?
No, agreed, man. And that's the whole point. Like, if you're, again, it's not showing kind of the respect and honor to that person's time. And I mean, Todd, we've been in meetings where we're talking about stuff and we'll briefly pause. You or I will say, hey, man, just a second. I got to check this real quick.
Sure.
Sorry. Give me a minute. And then, like, you're communicating, though, right? You're saying, dude, I'm totally in where I'm at, but I got to check this real quick. It's just all about communicating. I don't know, man. It's either a lack of focus. I understand that. There's a ton of distractions, but I think there's principles in communication and human interaction that reflect poorly on individuals if they're not honoring tried and true ways of communicating. Honoring another person's time and giving them your full undivided attention is, regardless of how much technology we have, I think even more valuable now with all the technology you have and distraction. So I'm with you, brother. That's always one thing I've appreciated about our relationship, is that we share very similar values in our transparency, the way we communicate, and our passion for business and entrepreneurism.
Brandon Ward's hanging out with us, the CEO of Lifted Innovations, at Brandon Ward CEOs, where you can give him a follow. Hey, Brandon, back to sort of the phones, but separate from looking at them in meetings. How is a boss and a leader of a company in the cool space, cannabis space, vaping space? I expect that there's some coolness within your employees, and that team growing day after day, week after week. How much do you look before you make a hire, though, on someone's social media? Are you careful about that? What they're saying, what they're how much they share? Is that important these days that people need to be cautious of?
Personally, I mean, I honestly don't dig in a whole lot. I do have people. I do have guys on my team that do that, though. So personally, I don't. But I have guys around me that put value in that. But maybe not necessarily. Like, they'll maybe dig in a little bit on Facebook or LinkedIn to kind of see their background, and maybe because you do want to be mindful of people, because challenges that you can face in the workplace, which is great. People that are very politically passionate or have very strong viewpoints. I love that. I'm one of those people, but I also can kind of set that aside to recognize that there are common causes that we all work towards, regardless of what our political viewpoints may be. I think we've lost sight of a lot of that. Clearly how kind of divided a lot of, both in Canada and in the States there's a lot of division. And I think a lot of that is, man, like we lose sight of how much commonality we have. And so for me, I personally don't put a whole ton of
I like that
in there, but I have guys on my team. Yeah. I don't know. I want to give somebody a chance. Like, for me, it's about my interaction and engagement and the relationship that you develop. And truthfully, like, when we hire, especially when we hire someone full time, it's a bit of a process we go through. We kind of have to meet the team. We work. It takes a bit of time. You want to kind of.
What is that? Yeah, take us through that step. Sorry to interrupt you, Brandon, but take us through the steps of. I was laughing with my wife the other day because I'm like, I've never in my life had a resume ever. I've never applied for a job. Maybe when I was 13 years old, I lied on a resume, said I was 15 and worked at Canadian Tire. But I think in my adult life, I've never once had a resume. And maybe even, literally, like zero resume. I don't know the interview process. My wife, from time to time, will tell me about the interview process of people that they go through at her work. And it is rough, dude, like 4 or 5 rounds. What's it like over at Lifted Innovations?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's similar. We move pretty quick just because some of the demands for us as a company are pressing. So we're looking to make decisions. And it is important. I think often, too, you'll know pretty quickly whether someone's a good fit or not. So I do like to kind of try someone on a contractual basis. You kind of have that probationary period. But so for us, we do a few rounds, like definitely a few rounds where we come in, we talk, we lay it out. We'll go through an email process. I personally think resumes are stupid. I've always hated that process. I think it really is meaningless. It's a piece of paper. People can, BS on them. I don't think there's a lot of value in that. I'd much rather sit someone down, find out where they worked and what their position was, and then ask them questions specifically about it, because you'll get a sense really quickly whether someone's full of it or not, I feel, unless they're just very, very well researched. As an example, so we hired, if I were to look, one of the guys on our team we hired fresh out of university, super sharp guy, he's developed so much. I've been so impressed with him. But when we brought him on as an intern, very inexperienced on paper. But, dude, when he came into the interview, first thing is to his referrals, right? Getting someone referred him to us, which I think is very important. But when he came into the interview with me, he knew more about our company based upon public information that most people who are considering investing in us knew. So right away, I knew that this kid was resourceful, he's passionate, and he's serious. So for me, I don't care. Like, you're not going to get that on your resume. He's immediately made an impact on me based on his actions and his decisiveness. So I don't care what your background is. If you show me that means you're committed, you're ready to go. So that to me is what I value.
I think we have a call. John from Michigan's on with Brandon Ward from Lifted Innovations. Hey, John.
Hey, Todd. Hey, Brandon. Really, I was going to make comment on something else, but what you just said about the resume has always resonated with me because I worked years ago in a print shop, and this is before the mass advent of the personal computer, and we would typeset people's resumes. And basically, it's kind of the rule for the resume is everything you learned in English class, you throw it out. You don't use periods. You don't use complete sentences. You don't use I. And I just always found that silly. But I want to make a comment on the time thing. My mother sold insurance years ago, and the company that she worked for encouraged them to make their appointments instead of 11:45, make it 11:42. So you make a specific time, and you show up at that specific time, and that just means it was a way for them to show how valuable that their client's time was.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I like kind of you got a bit of that old school mentality too, John. Right? Especially with the resume piece, how do you sum up to your job experience on a single piece of paper at bulleted points? Like, how are you supposed to explain what you've done successfully, right? It's a little ridiculous.
Exactly.
I would just put emojis on my resume. Like a mic emoji and a smiley guy wearing sunglasses, like cool radio guy. That's what people get out of it. Anyone ever put emojis on resumes?
I feel like that's what's going to start happening now with new generations, man. I mean, honestly, now with especially
thumbs up,
at least in creative spaces. Yeah, they're all digital now. They're like websites. It's just like your resume's a website now. It's kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy. John, you got anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for the call, and thanks for letting me call in, Todd.
Of course. Thanks, John.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
So,
Cheers,
Brandon,
man.
what's going on right now with Lifted Innovations, with the company specifically?
So we got both of our platforms live, lifted.com, which is where we've got accessories, vaporizers, glass pieces, and things of that nature. We've got our CBD marketplace up and live, which is liftedcbd.com, which is very, very exciting. We got a lot of work going into that. We're putting together marketing campaigns. We've actually been running a few 420 campaigns for this month regarding April. It's a big month in the cannabis space. So the team's been running around, man. It's fun, looking to hire a couple of strategic people, looking for a strong marketing lead. If anybody's listening out there, we're looking for someone who's hungry and looking to get into space. So, dude, it's always fun, man. It's such a privilege to be running a company. It's super hard. We talk about this often, especially when I'm up here, man. My days are 12, 15-hour days, but it's weird. I have to force myself to sleep. I don't know. I think something's wrong with me. I love it, man.
Well, you're working hard, man, and growing a company, and predominantly, I mean, all those sort of purchases on those sites is everything to do with the states, and the states starting to looks like really open up banks now with the business of marijuana, and really starting to lessen kind of the laws. We saw the Farm Bill a couple months ago be passed for hemp-based CBDs. And are you getting that vibe when because you live in the States, if you're not back here for Lifted, where your home base is in Toronto, but are you getting the vibe, even more that the stigma is truly going away?
Yeah, and I mean it's taken time. The regulators are always super slow. Underwriters, I mean, naturally so. They have federal risk, so even though state by state are moving at a much quicker pace, there's from a banking perspective, from an investment perspective, a lot of the bigger groups they're on the outside really hungry because they know the opportunities there. So they're trying to find creative ways to get involved, but not directly. So I think that's a good sign, though, right? Because ultimately, in my mind, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're really going to see all those guys that have gotten creative and have been on the outside immediately. Once it changes at the federal level, that switch will flip, and then it's just going to, they're all going to jump in already positioned. So you're seeing that happen, which is great. That's where it starts. You got to have the big money and the guys that are lobbying and doing the things behind the scenes to push it. I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but it seems to be the world we live in.
How fearful of you are of a competition? It seems like every kind of day, every new day, there's like a new company within the space. Is that something you're always trying to keep up on?
I mean, you definitely want to be aware of what's happening, but for me, internally at least, our goal is to focus heavily on our customers, serve our customers, listen to our customers, think about our shareholders, how can we return on their investment. And I believe in what we're doing. And, competition is always going to be there, especially in this space. But so you want to pay attention to what's happening. You can learn. But honestly, at the end of the day, man, I'm a big believer in knowing who you are, believing in what you're doing, not being blind to what's around you, but just getting after what you control. Because, ultimately, we can't control anything about the competitors that come into the space, what they're doing. We can learn maybe how we could pivot a little bit or add some extra things, but we only have control over our destiny and what we're doing as a team and a company. So that's where I try to keep our focus, because everything else is just out of our hands.
Yeah, well said, man. Well, listen, Brandon, I wish you were in studio. You are in Toronto, though, right?
I am. I'm over on Bay Street right now, looking out down. I forgot what street it is right now. I'm on Bay, and I'm drawing blank, man. I'm still learning. I'm looking at good life. It's a beautiful day in Toronto.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you.
Yeah, dude, I miss you, man.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll see you soon, and thank you so much for all this. I love the inspirational advice. I think it's so important. So many of our listeners being entrepreneurs or people wanting to kind of learn about, maybe leaving a job one day and taking a chance and doing something on themselves. I think that's sort of a lot of people's dreams anyways, to kind of figure out what kind of company that they can go and start and create and run and be the boss of, because no one really wants bosses. I mean, there's always bosses, but even if you're running a company, there's always bosses, especially if it's going to be publicly traded. Your shareholders are your bosses in a way. But it's about giving back and helping them, educate them. And Brandon, you do that so well. Thank you again, my man.
I appreciate you, Todd. It's always a pleasure, brother. Have a good one, all right?
Cheers. Yeah, we'll talk next week. Brandon Ward from Lifted Innovations.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.